Welcome to Build. I'm your host, Ricky Camilleri. Our next guest has a couple of classic characters under his belt. He's got Gary from Veep and, of course, Buster from Arrested Development, who, along with the entire Bluth family, returns to Netflix next week. Let's take a look at Tony Hale in the trailer from the 5th season of Arrested Development.
Hello?
I told you he'd come!
The Bluth family.
We're shooting footage for Lindsay.
Campaign footage.
You're running for office?
I want to be part of the problem, Michael.
Is finally back together.
Oh, great. Get your stuff. Let's get out of here.
Well, that didn't last long. Maybe.
What?
Maybe we can figure out where it all went wrong.
I've made a huge mistake.
What is this?
Go right to that!
Lucille! I'm a monster! Cuckoo-ca-cha! It seems a lot has changed over the years.
I just blew myself for the first time in 5 years.
Well, not everything.
What was it that brought everyone back together in town this time?
But this new beginning is different.
I don't like it.
Because the Bluths are finally getting the award they think they deserve.
Family of the month.
Yeah, are you mother family of the mother year?
Who'd give us that? We're giving it to ourselves. Right. Still doesn't seem like we'd get the votes.
Because nothing holds you down like family.
Hi, I'm Michael, and I came here to save everyone.
Buster?
Oh, look who's back. I thought we were supposed to go with a
Arrested Development, Season 5.
Goodbye forever.
See you tonight.
See you tonight.
Good night.
Only on Netflix.
Everybody, Tony Hale!
Hello, 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 hello.
Tony, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks
Thank
for
you, them
having
for
you.
being here, and for you being here. Thanks for being alive.
Thank God. Thank God.
Right? Every day, we're thankful.
Congrats, season 5.
Yeah,
How long ago did you guys shoot this?
well, from the beginning, it's been 15 years.
That's
we
true,
started
yeah.
in 2003, which is crazy. And then we started this season August, and we finished around like February.
Oh, wow, that's not that long ago. For some reason, I had an idea that you guys shot this some time ago.
I think we finished a lot of it before Christmas, and then we kind of did a lot of pickups after Christmas.
So what is it like returning to Buster?
Whew, sweet Buster. He's got a new hand this time. This is actually the hand. Well, last season he had a bit like a large enlarged hand. And the skin came off, and this is the robot underneath the hand, so it's a little Terminator-esque. What was it like? It's always weird coming back, and I honestly always get kind of nervous that, oh man, can we match expectations? But then being around the cast, and specifically Jessica Walter, who plays my mother, she has a very degrading, passive-aggressive tone to when she says Buster. Then I'm just like back. Then it's just like a Pavlovian, like, all right, Buster's back.
It's in the trailer, I believe. There's a great moment where you do an impression of a number of people in the family kind of interacting with each other, which is really, really
Disturbing.
funny and disturbing. But when they told you were going to have to do that, what were you thinking?
I mean, he always does this, like, even though I don't...
True, he does the...
he always does this, like, smoking thing when he imitates his mother. And it might come from last season. I did this really disturbing thing where I had to inhale smoke out of her mouth. So she was on house arrest, coming from your last guest, who's like a really dramatic actress, and I'm like, yeah, I had to inhale smoke out of. But like she was on house arrest and she couldn't smoke, and then so she wanted to smoke, so she had me, her codependent son, suck smoke, cup her mouth, and suck smoke out of her mouth, and then exhale on the patio. And we had to do it over and over and over. And I've got asthma, so that was a fun day.
So what were you and Jessica thinking when they told you that you had to do that?
It's one of those things on Arrested Development, you get very used to being like, oh yeah, by the way, you're gonna like suck smoke out of her mouth, and you're like, all right. And then like they'll be like, oh yeah, a seal's gonna bite off your hand. Okay, let's go with it.
At what point in making Arrested Development do you stop asking questions?
It's been a long time ago that I've asked. I will say I ask a lot of questions of kind of, what's going on? Like because when I read the scripts, I don't fully understand exactly what's happening, and maybe it's because I'm a visual learner. So this past week we had our premiere, and when I saw the 3 episodes, things started to make sense. So I'll have to ask a lot of questions of kind of, so where are we coming from, and what's happened, and why am I wearing this, And why am I wearing a robot hand? You know, it's like, I just want to, I ask Mitch a lot of questions.
Well, it's a whirlwind to be tossed into. As someone who's watched the first 3.5 episodes,
You've actually seen more than I've seen.
Yeah, it's a bit of a whirlwind to be tossed into because it's been a couple years since the last season came out.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily like it was when it was on Fox and, you know, there was a new season after the summer break and then a new season came, or you're watching it on DVD, which is like people were just plowing through them.
Yeah, sure.
Because they'd already been made. So it is like, you know, there's a lot of catch-up that is done in the first, I think, episode and a half.
Yeah, there is a lot of catch-up, and it's also an incredibly dense show. There's
incredibly dense. You forget how dense it is before you sit down to watch it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff that there was this one joke I remember when I got my hand eaten off by a seal, typical storyline, and I was in the hospital, and the doctor came out and said, they said, how's Buster? And the doctor goes, oh, he's gonna be all right. And for years, I thought, oh, that's so funny because the doctor's saying he's going to be all right, but he lost his hand. Oh, haha, that's funny. And then I was doing this podcast with an audience, and I gave that joke, and I said, the doctor said he's going to be okay. And the person raised his hand, and they said, no, he said he's going to be all right. Like he only has a right hand now. He's all right.
Yeah.
And not left. And I was like, oh, okay, after 15 years, I finally got the joke.
You're like, oh, there was a
From
pun,
an audience member.
a pun there.
Yeah, exactly. So there's stuff that I miss all the time.
So when you go back to playing Buster, is there any fear? I mean, not necessarily managing expectations, but there's a lot that is required of an actor to play Buster. Is there
pain?
Yeah, and
History
I
of
think
pain.
just sort of like you have to do a lot with your body, and you have to get sort of energy-wise to a certain place. Do you ever
Yeah.
worry about going back there?
Sure. No, there's something about Buster that he's always in a state of defense. Like his chin goes back, his hands will kind of go back, and he's always he's always just kind of. And I remember Mitch Hurwitz, who created the show. I had a discussion with him years ago, and I said, "What does Buster want in life?" And he said, "Safety. That's all Buster wants is safety." And so he's always just looking for safety and just on the defense of everything. And so that's kind of fun to kind of approach that like that.
Would you say that he's even like a very much exaggerated version of Gary? Do you see them as kind of,
Yeah.
you know, on the same coin to a degree?
Yeah, I think Gary could probably give Buster. Gary's my character on Veep, and he plays also this kind of defeated, emasculated character to Julie Louis-Dreyfus.
Mommy sort of obsessed.
Yeah, man-child. They're both, I guess, man-children, but on different sides. I think Buster's kind of in a state of paralysis the whole time. It's a big thing if he can even get to the pharmacy. You know, that's a big step. Whereas Gary can hold a job and will defend Selena and all this kind of stuff. Buster, as much as he loves his mother, I don't think he would ever defend his mother. You know, he's just constantly traumatized.
Do you think he would run out? He wouldn't take a bullet for her?
No. But Gary would take a bullet for Selena, hands down.
What is it like when you guys all sort of get back together and get to do a scene together? One of my favorite things, and although you're not in the scene that I'm referencing right now, we see it in the beginning here. It's like when you're watching the first few episodes of the show, it's great, and then when the family all gets together, everything clicks.
Yeah, I mean that's what I think that's what we all missed a lot of times because I know the fourth season was a little challenging because everybody had different schedules. It was tough to bring people together. Each character had an episode. However, to give a lot of respect to Mitch, it was the first time Netflix had released all these episodes at once. So he really used the format to make it like a puzzle where you got them all at once. It was like an album. And you could, like in one episode, Job would walk off, and then in a next episode, you'd see where Job was going. So you could kind of piece it together because it was all there at the same time. This time he did it a lot more like the earlier format, where it's all kind of continuous.
It still feels a bit like a comedy writer's conspiracy theory den at times, though, where they're like, you know, there's the yarn drawn up to different things.
Yeah,
like,
and the writer's room was like that. There was all these cards of different storylines, and then there was like these strings that attached, and it just looked like some psycho killer's war room. But it's anytime we can kind of get together and our personalities, our character personalities are so different. Like Job is such an egomaniac. I'm so freaked out. So anytime we can get together, that's a really fun energy to play against.
were you able to get together a lot in this season? Were they able to coordinate the schedules a bit more?
Yeah, we're all working together. Buster, however, is in jail. A lot of the time, because what happened the last season, something traumatic happened, very traumatic to my girlfriend, Miss Liza Minnelli, who plays Lucille too on the show. And so Buster's taken away from the police, and then so I'm kind of behind bars, and someone like Buster behind bars is just, that's never pretty. So it gets
And now,
interesting.
Netflix is releasing the first 8 episodes, right?
Yeah.
So what is the thought process behind that?
I don't know. I mean, I get all my news from the internet, so I don't really know exactly what's going on. But
Take a minute and text Mitch. You could tell us.
Okay,
Yeah.
one second. Just give me 5 minutes. But I think it's I don't know. I really don't know. Maybe for just kind of anticipation, or I don't really know what his plan. He's always got some kind of plan in his head that we're all trying to. It's all when he reveals it, we're like, oh yeah, that makes sense why you did that. But in the moment, we're always just kind of trusting his ways.
Do you have a favorite cast member that you like playing with? Is it Jessica Walter?
I love them all. I do love Jessica Walter because our relationship is just so unbelievably dysfunctional. I remember that lot. There was
real gross.
Oh, it's real gross. But there's that one scene, I think it was in season 4, where I miss my mother, so I begin to make a dummy of her, and it's like a very psycho kind of homage. And it's just so twisted. In the end, I'm like without clothes, sewing her skin. I mean, it's just twisted. So it got dark.
Veep has one more season in it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
What is that like knowing? I think you said you might be shooting it next year sometime or later this year.
We're gonna probably shoot at the end of the summer. Julia is doing fantastic. She's just getting stronger and stronger. And so I would say probably towards the end of the summer that we're going to start shooting. And I have no idea. It's another show that I'm constantly surprised by because it's, you kind of watch the news and it's kind of sometimes its own satire. So, but it's like, I don't know how they're going to unfold it and kind of what new surprises they're going to do. But those writers work very, very hard.
I was watching Veep earlier, like last week. My partner was watching it at home, and she was kind of like, I can't believe it. It's just like the administration right now. And I was like, no, it's not. These people are actually competent and less evil. Like,
yeah, it's always, and there's been many, actually even on Arrested, this Lucille was the first one, I think it was a season 4, she said, well, let's build a wall. Let's build a wall. Let's build a wall. You know, this was years before Donald Trump was like, I'm going to build a wall. So it's interesting. And stuff like that has happened on Veep, too, which is very weird.
Right. And I think the, well, I guess I don't want to spoil anything, but I love the moment where she's like, that's a clever twist.
Yeah. Yeah.
When it comes to Veep, how much do you, I mean, I guess you don't really work with the writers at all, or do you talk to them beforehand about where Gary's going? Because the last season we had that great episode where we got to really meet Gary's family and see sort of what he came from and why he was
kind of
so broken.
Like, I know Gary comes from the South. He comes from Birmingham, Alabama, and his dad, his mom, actually, there was one moment where Julia's character was forgetting something, and him and his mom leaned in and reminded her. So obviously he got that from his mom. His dad was really, I mean, if you look at just the story, it's very, very sad. But, you know, there's thankfully a lot of comedy comes out of it. But it was
Who
fun
played
to
your dad again?
Oh, now that you asked me, I totally forgot.
That's totally my fault. If I was going to ask this question, should have done some research.
No, I should know this. He's an incredibly talented actor, and I'm just blanking on his name right now.
Well, he did a great job.
He did a great job. Can someone please IMDb that? No, he's fantastic.
Have you talked to the writers at all about what they're going to be doing with you next season? Do they like send you emails or sort of shoot ideas by you?
Well, I think they kind of, when we can kind of get some time with them, since kind of Julia's been on her journey this year, we haven't really seen the writers a lot. But when we get with them, we're always like, oh, what are you thinking? You know, what's going on? And all this kind of stuff. And so, but then they also once they kind of get an idea of where it's going, they give us time to improv and kind of come up with some fun stuff. And so that's, on Arrested, we didn't do so much of that because Mitch really has a grid in his head of how he wants stuff to go. But on Veep, when we'll have like a script, they work very hard on the scripts, and then they give us kind of time to play and find stuff and improv. And
there's no improv at all on Arrested Development?
It's not like there is improv, but I remember, I guess years ago when, before my hand was eaten off, there was like all of these kind of, there was a hand chair in my room, there was all these hand references, and I had no idea my hand was coming off. And so all this stuff was scripted. And it's like, if I had one day been like, I don't know what that's about, I'm not going to say that I'm going to improv something else, it would have messed up this foreshadowing that he was doing. So everybody kind of trusts that, kind of stay to the page, because Mitch has a reason for kind of all of this comic grid that he's laid out.
It's very heavily beaded out.
Yes,
script.
yes,
I mean,
yes,
I guess
yes.
that you couldn't really improvise too much within there. Although I do think he gives Cross a lot of leverage in terms of
He does
like,
give-
especially in the new
Yeah,
stuff
yeah.
where he's really he's
Yeah,
just sort of mock everybody or mimic everybody and go around doing it.
Yes. That is true. David Cross, who plays Tobias, he's the guy in the brown sweater. He kind of he has a couple times where he plays Jason Bateman's role in the show, and he also plays my role because he's an actor in the show, and it's really wild.
Can't also keep up with
He
who
can't
he
keep
is
up.
as an actor. in
No,
the
he
thing.
doesn't know who he
You're
is.
you and I'm and you.
So it's like I'm playing you, playing me, or something like that. Yeah.
When you get told that, did you guys know Arrested was going to come back for a 5th season when you finished the 4th?
No, it's always ever since no. I mean, it's a world that we always like to come back to, but we don't really. Ever since it started, we've always been kind of on the bubble. We've always been kind of like, are we coming back? Are we getting canceled? We don't know. So we've kind of gotten used to if it happens, it happens. It's going to be a joy. If not, that would be a bummer. So it's always a great surprise when it comes in. And Netflix, reviving it has just been an awesome gift.
Is there a part of you? I mean, you said that Tobias and Gary are kind of two characters on the same coin to a degree. Is there a part of you that is looking for something outside of the emasculated man-child that or do you feel like you get a lot of challenges when you play these two characters?
I mean, it just so happens that two of the main characters that are gotten probably the most time they're both kind of that character. But it is fun to kind of play, like some indie movies I've done. I've been able to play different characters. I remember I did like a couple of SVUs or Law and Orders. Just kind of that kind of stuff is really fun. I just played this on this movie Batman Ninja. I was the Joker. And that was
that's
really
right.
fun.
Yeah.
He's a really lascivious, it just got really, really dark, and that was fun. So, I mean, it's.
Do you look for those things when
I do. I mean, I don't know if I look for them when they come. I'm like, oh, that's really, really fun. But those kind of independent stuff, it's fun to kind of, because by the grace of God, like I've been able to have these gigs, and I'm incredibly, incredibly thankful for it. So that's
in no way a prompt for you to complain about your jobs.
No. But it's like, it's been such great longevity of work, so I'm super grateful for it. It's lasted a long time. And in between that, I've been able to kind of branch off and do other stuff. Like I was able to play this really fun vice principal in that movie Love, Simon. And so it's just stuff like that is fun to kind of do when I'm not doing these guys.
Do you find that you still get a lot of scripts, though, that are like, oh, because you were Gary or Buster, will you please play this similar
Yeah, I mean,
thing?
that's a time when I'm like, I might not go that angle so much because I've done that a lot. Yeah. But also I'm incredibly, a gig's a gig, and I'm so glad to be working, so it's hard to, say no to work sometimes.
Let's get some questions from our audience. Who has a question?
Our first question is going to come from an online viewer. Thomas would like to know who cracks up the most on set of Arrested Development.
I would say, I would definitely say I break the most on both Arrested Development and Veep. To the point, I break so much on Veep that Julia said to me once, she says, Tony, you're not watching the show, you're in the show.
She breaks a fair amount,
She does, but then she just makes fun of me. However, I come from the camp that I don't think there's enough shows out there that show people breaking, because I never really watch. I mean, when Arrested came about, I watched old episodes just to kind of get into it a little bit, and then some Veep. But I watch those blooper reels over and over and over and over, because that's what I remember. I remember breaking. I remember not keeping it together, and I don't feel like we see that enough. There's a Debbie Downer sketch on SNL at Disney, and I have watched that probably 100 times on
I watch
YouTube.
gag reels a fair amount. They're like a go-to happy place sometimes.
It's a happy place. It's like you can't make, you just see the tension of them holding it together and then breaking. And I there's just such a great joy in watching that. And Tim Conway, who was a comic icon of mine growing up, him and Bob Newhart, watching Tim Conway break Harvey Korman up on the Carol Burnett show was some of the funniest stuff, like in the dentist chair and all that kind of stuff. I loved it.
And who breaks on Arrested?
I probably break the most. Yeah. I mean, so what I'm saying is I'm the least professional. I'm trying to think. Everybody kind of breaks. I mean, when you're working across from like Will Arnett, or David Cross, it's kind of tough not to. But I just love watching that stuff.
Next question. Hi.
Hey.
Hi.
How are
big
you?
fan.
Oh, thanks. Oh, I like your tee. Is that an Arrested t-shirt?
Yes.
Oh,
it is.
nice.
Throughout the show, you worked with different types of hands.
Yes, I did.
Which one was your favorite? Whether it was because it was funnier or easier.
Sure. I'm gonna go old school, and I like the hook. I
really like the Terminator hand, I have to tell you.
I do like the Terminator hand. But the thing is, with the Terminator hand, somebody was controlling it off set, so I would be talking, like if I'm talking to you, and someone would be controlling it, and I'd be like, yeah, so I did this, and all of a sudden the hand just does this to the person, and I was just like, oh, so it was had its own kind of surprises, but I like the hook because I just have so many memories of that time when I realized I actually had the hook, when I destroyed the living room, and I would give people massages with the hook and stuff like that. I just love. He was a friend. The hook was a friend.
Oh, one more. Right here.
Hi.
Hey, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you doing?
I'm good.
You briefly mentioned how you had the role as the vice principal in Love, Simon.
Yeah,
and,
sure.
Honestly, it's one of my favorite movies that came out this year.
Yeah, it's a good one.
I've seen it so many times by now. And I was wondering, how was it like for you to be on that set, being this funny comic relief in this very emotional story that's for a big community?
Yeah, it's a beautiful movie. Greg Berlanti directed the movie. And he's a guy who I just have such respect for because he's one of those directors that captains the ship, but he's kind and he's gracious. And many times, I haven't worked with a lot of them, but every now and then I'll have a director that, years ago I can think of one, who was kind of arrogant and felt he had to kind of dictate and kind of captain a ship with that kind of authority. And it just created this tense environment. But Greg created such a loving environment, which I really think played into the movie and kind of, for lack of a better word, energy around the movie. But I loved being in that movie because I just think there's so many kids out there who don't feel free to share their stories. And I do hope it gave them not only the permission to share their story, but also just the freedom and the support that they needed, definitely. Yeah, thanks.
How often have you found that, because like Arrested and Veep are two shows that probably need directors with a very specific skill set. Have you ever found that like you and the cast have to kind of shepherd some directors in and teach them how it goes?
Yeah, that's a great question. Good question.
Thanks.
You're really good at what you do.
Gave me this job for some reason.
You're really good. It is interesting with television because for those of you who don't know, like you get several directors in a series. It's not just, sometimes it's just one director, but it's mainly many different directors. And so with film, it's just one guy at the top. And so you kind of just keep going to that guy or girl. But on television, you kind of you never know what you're going to get. So many times, if there's a new person coming on, you can kind of feel maybe that they're nervous and they're trying to get, and so you kind of have to, give them some tips, but not mostly, but and sometimes they'll give direction that doesn't fit kind of the tone. And you just kindly be like, I totally hear what you're saying, but I don't know if that's something that, and then, sometimes it's like that. But for the most part, they fit the tone.
And I would imagine for Arrested, you're on season 5, and Veep, you're on what, season 7?
7, yeah.
Yeah, are you going into 7?
Going into season 7.
Yeah, so you probably have a list of directors that that they choose from that already really know.
And they get the style and all that stuff.
It's really the first and probably second seasons where you're figuring out who
and
the
also
A-team is.
In television, the kind of the creative top is typically the head writer, is the showrunner.
The writer and the DP kind of that are sort of
the writer and the
show.
DP. So like Dave Mandel and Mitch Hurwitz on Veep and Mitch Hurwitz on Arrested Development and Armando Iannucci on Veep when he was there. Those would typically be the people we'd go to say, this isn't making sense, this isn't gelling. Whereas on a film, it's always just the director that you go to kind of ask those creative questions.
Did you guys know that Armando Iannucci was leaving after that season that he left? Was that something that was...
Towards the end, we had heard kind of rumors of it. And so it was, in all honesty, I remember thinking, you kind of feel like, Dad's leaving. He knows the show, he knows the rhythms, like, what does that mean? But I have massive respect just because the show was, especially for the head writer, and he was always on set, and he lived in the UK, his family was in the UK. So it was really, he wanted to spend some more time with his family, which I highly respect. And thankfully, it was very seamless with Dave Mandel, who came in after. He knew the style. He worked a lot with Julia in other projects, and spent a lot of time with Armando to kind of get the tone and stuff.
And he absolutely did get the tone, but I would say that you can see a difference in the seasons. Not in terms of quality in any way.
Yeah, sure.
I think in terms the show is biting, I think, on both sides of those showrunners.
Yeah.
But the Mandel tone, I think also because the team is exiting politics just a little bit more, it becomes so much more personally biting.
Interesting. And you, right when you said that, I just think about the names that, there's a character on there named Jonah, who Tim Simons plays. And he gets called the worst names. Like, it's just, and you can't help sometimes think like, does he take that personally? Because there was one time he's a tall dude, and they just said, in the show, they were like, yeah, you just have an odd shape about you. And it's just, you're just kind of like, God, how does he not walk away and not take that personally? Somebody, I remember Reed, it wasn't even scripted, and Reed, who plays Dan on the show, out of nowhere while we were shooting, he just goes, hey, cow eyes, to me. And I was like, what? That's not what. I was like, all right, let's go with it.
You know that's like a group of writers in the room going, I think Tony has cow eyes.
Yeah, I know.
We should put that in the script,
Yeah,
right?
but that wasn't even in the script. That was from the fellow actor. I was like, hey, easy.
That came up with
Reed.
that?
Yeah, that's why I was like, it wasn't even in the script. We're just throwing out insults to each other. It's cow eyes. What's going on?
Is there like an apology ceremony after a shoot?
Yeah, we all hold
sometimes?
hands and pray.
Well, Tony, you're on two of the funniest shows that are on television and streaming right now. However you want to say how people watch it, I don't know.
Yeah. I guess I wonder if that lingo is going to have to change.
I always say because it's like on television, but they're not. But
I guess it is like,
'cause I watch them on television.
Yeah,
but
yeah. Today's the day. You got to change the lingo.
Should we do it right now?
Let's do it right now.
Let's take the next
On
15
stream.
minutes and really
Let's
figure
just-
it out.
You're really streaming on the best shows.
You have two of the best shows on.
Well, that's very kind.
That's it.
Thank you.
First 8 episodes of Arrested Development Season 5 next week, Friday of next week, right?
May 29th.
May 29th?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is that Friday or is that Tuesday? I think it's
Should know the answer to that. I don't know.
Someday next week, that is the 29th.
Yeah.
And really looking forward to the next. And
Me too.
final
I've only
season of
seen the
Veep.
first 3, so I'm excited.
Oh, and Veep. I was looking forward to that too.
Me too. Me too.
Tony Hale, everybody. Let's hear it.
Thanks, guys.